Okay, hello. And now, as I get started here, I already know what the crybabies are going to say. Here's what the wah wah people are going to say. You can't come to the net these days. Polyester string makes it impossible. No, not true. All right, now this is the second in a series of how to break down a certain type of player, right? So last time I talked about how to get incrementally better when you're facing a big server or somebody who has a myriad of different spins. So, so we talked about how to deal with that. And the idea isn't that you're going to go from, you're only winning 23% of the points to you're going to win 100% of them. That's not the point of that. The point is that you're going to change the odds slightly more in your favor. If you can get from 23 to 27 to maybe 32, on first serve point percentages, that's pretty good, right? I mean, on the tour, the men win 72 to 75% of their first serve points. Anyway, I just realized I was going on a tangent, so I'm going to come back. All right. But the idea is to get incrementally better percentages for yourself. So if you can increase your winning percentage by 1%, that makes a difference. 2% more, 5%, pretty significant. So because matches are won on a percentage basis. And I'm going to dig into a little bit more about that later, right? But now, actually, no, I'm gonna get into that a little bit. All right. So here's the interesting thing: 80% of tennis matches are won by the player who simply wins one more point. So that's 50 point something percent to 49 point something percent. 80% of matches are won with that margin. 90% of matches are won by a player who wins 50. No. I'm sorry. 95% of matches are won by a player who wins 51% of the points. Because now there's a 51 to 49. That's a 2 percentage swing there. And then 99% of matches are won by the player who wins 55% of the points. Now, one thing that we know from Craig O'Shaughnessy is that when people come to the net, they're going to win 60% of the points. But what the problem is, people obsess about the 40% of the points that they don't win. And when the passing shot beats them cleanly. So you can't worry about that so much. But now here's a problem. One of the problems with coming to the net is conventional wisdom about how to come to the net. Because the time-honored tradition is that you come in on a slice approach shot down the line. So you might hit your slice backhand to the other person's forehand, or you might not slice your forehand to the other person's backhand, but you might drive the ball over there, right? And come in behind it. And then down the line was the way to go. But now we know that actually the highest percentage way to the net is serve and volley. That's shocking to some people, right? So when you serve and volley, that is the best way to come in. It bears the highest winning percentages. I think part of it is that element of surprise. The other player has to make a good return right now. So part of the thing about coming to the net is that it requires the other player to make a great shot now. And now this is why this video is about how to break down two different kinds of players. One, the power player. So when you're dictating to a power player where they have to hit the ball, and you take them outside of what their preferred thing to do is, and you're requiring them to hit a big shot now, even maybe one shot before they want to, then you're changing the parameters for them, and you can put pressure on them. Because if they're waiting, if they want you to stay at the baseline, and then they can get you moving, and they can get you to respond to them. See, there's a psychological part to that. And then there's the so-called rally player, right? And this is what a lot of people do. They just run around and they just hit one more shot and searching for the holy grail of consistency, right? But if you serve and you come in and now they have to hit a passing shot right away, oh man, you can make their motherboard explode in their little computer brain. So serve and volley is number one. And the interesting thing is it really doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of practice in serve and volley to get pretty good at it. When I was coaching high school, my high school kids could all serve and volley. Some better, some worse, right? But we spent a lot of time practicing that. And so my doubles players would serve and volley on at least first serve. A lot of them came in on both serves. My singles players, one of them wasn't all full-time serve and volley, come to the net all the time guy. Others could, serve and volley a couple times a game. Others 2 or 3 times a set, just enough to have that effect. It's really interesting to me how after a match, your player has serve and volleyed the first point of the match, and maybe 2 or 3 more points during the match. And then afterwards, I've overheard these conversations. He was a serve and volleyer. And he only did it 5 times in the match. But that's the psychological effect it has on the other player. Now, but you don't necessarily have to serve and volley if that's just so frightening to you that you just aren't going to do it because you're terrified of being passed clean, right? That's too bad, right? But for those of you who are brave and are willing to take some risks, and you serve and volley on the first point of the match, and maybe the first point of a couple of service games, and then maybe when you have 40 love, right, or love 40. Then serve and volley. I mean, it's at low 40, it can't hurt, right? You're already in a ditch. But at 40 love, if you can finish a game with an exclamation point, big confidence booster. Now, nothing against hitting the standard, approach shots down the line. Those still work. But the second most effective thing that Craig O'Shaughnessy has found is that the inside-out forehand approach to the backhand is the next most efficient thing that you can do, which that was new for me. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it kind of, it seems like a cross-court approach shot. And that, that was deeply embedded in us. If you grew up in my era, is that you don't approach cross court, or not very much anyway. So now, but there are other ways to get to the net, and I believe if you use all of them, you can actually get to the net very easily and be even more effective coming in, because then the other players like, wait a minute, here's all these different situations. Are they coming in or not? Sterling's watching. All right, so I got a comment from Sterling on LinkedIn. Junior tennis stat, greater than 30% of serves do not come back when you serve and volley. Mic drop. All right. I don't know how to make that mic drop thing sound effect, but I'm going to work on that. So that's amazing. I mean, and I'm glad you said that, Sterling, because this is something that's really important to keep in mind, is that how often the opponent doesn't return the shot. That's the number one thing that happens. So great point. junior tennis stat greater than 30% of serves do not come back. Well, but you had that little, all right, so about 30%. So Sterling put a one of these, which to me in my math mind means greater than. All right, well, anyway, I misunderstood that. But now back to our topic. So, one of the sneakiest ways you can come into the net is on a drop shot. So you drop shot them, you get them in really close, you come in close, and you're ready to volley, and you've got an open court, and you can even do a volley lob over their head. Oh, okay. Now Sterling's apologizing. So no, it's okay, buddy. I'm just happy to have the interaction. This is like, it's a dream come true. So, all right. So you can come in on a drop shot. One of my favorite ways to come in is on a moonball. So your opponent moonballs you, and what do most people do? They're just dreading it, and you don't want to get into a big moonball war. So don't wait for a moonball war. That first moonball comes in, hit it higher than they hit it, and then you've got all this time to come in and get ready for an overhead. Because more than likely, they're much more likely to lob that next shot back. And then now you're hitting an overhead. And when you're hitting overheads, you ought to have an 80% win percentage, maybe higher. But, you might miss 1 out of 10 overheads. And, 1 out of 10 times they might lob you perfectly, But you're gonna stay on offense if you're hitting that good overhead. So number one, serve and volley. Number two, approach inside out. Number three, approach with your forehand down to their backhand. All right, down the line. I don't recommend going down the line from the backhand to the forehand quite as much. I actually would prefer a forehand cross-court approach shot to the forehand than a backhand down the line approach shot to the forehand, right? So anyway, but even better than those is, the drop shot approach, the moonball approach. Another really awesome one that the Swedes were doing for quite some time is a short cross-court angled shot, even out wide to the forehand, and approach there, but you really have to guard that line first, but then you're going to have a wide opening over to the backhand side. All right, and so more comments from Sterling. All right, so thank you for that. And so there are different ways to come to the net, and what this does though is it requires your opponent to then also have to do something now on your terms when they don't want to. You do have to have you have to have some tolerance for risk, right? But here's an interesting thing. I went and spent some time with Robert Lansdorp at his house, and I have his book on my computer right now, but it's going to remain unpublished for a little bit. But anyway, I don't know how many times I've heard Robert tell the story now, but he's like, okay, what if here's $100 and I have some 20s, right? So I have 5 20s, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 4 of them, and I'm going to have 1. But here's what I'm going to do. I give you 1, but you have to give me 2. I give you 1, but you have to give me 2. I give you 1, you have to give me 2. Oh, who has all the money? So he does this with little kids, and they're kind of like, hey, wait a second, and that's how he says it. So if you have a 66% win percentage at the net, right? I give you 1, you give me 2. I give you 1, you give me 2. So that's the way to think about it. Is that you're going to lose some points. You will be beaten on some points. Those passing shots, when you get past clean, it feels like an arrow to your heart. But that's the least common thing that happens. The most common thing that happens is they don't make the passing shot. So, okay, here comes a question from Sterling. why isn't there more time spent coaching junior players to come to the net with these winning tactics, not winking. That's a good misspell right there. Winking tactics. All right. You know, it's this. The problem is that there's this mantra out there, and people keep saying it. You can't come to the net anymore. I can't get my players to go to the net. They won't go to the net. And so, to me, it's a coaching problem. It's because the coach isn't teaching it. So why they don't teach it is because I guess they don't know how to teach it. I mean, what other answer could there be? I mean, either your players go to the net or they don't, and it's because you taught them to come to the net or you didn't teach them to come to the net. And there is a lot of little fine tuning. There are a lot of little things that have to be learned. And I guess maybe it's just pure laziness. I wish I knew, but I'm just guessing. I mean, but I do hear this pushback from people. You can't go to the net anymore because topspin is too big because of polyester strings. But it's not really true. It's just not true. The data doesn't support that. I do believe it is slightly more difficult with, the greater topspin. And I do believe tennis would benefit by having a slightly more narrow court. And that would eliminate two things. It would eliminate players who are 6'11", who hit that kick serve out wide that bounces, 27 feet in the air. And then also, then it would make coverage at the net a little bit easier and, would mitigate that problem. Okay. Could we be stuck with believing the baseline rally is more winning? Yeah. So, yeah, and that's an interesting thing that Sterling asks. People have this belief that winning at the baseline is really a higher percentage. But the interesting thing is almost nobody over a season has a winning percentage at the net or at the baseline over 50%. Okay. Zero players over the course of a season have a winning percentage over 50% of the baseline. And you're thinking, wait, well, how can that be? How can they win any matches? Well, and the reason is because their serve didn't get returned. So that's not a baseline point. That's the most common thing that happens. And the next thing that happens is they don't make their first shot, right? And so I guess you could call that a baseline point, but if that's the second most common thing that happens, then it's going to be really hard to be over 50%. If the most common thing that happens is you miss the next shot after you serve, so you better make those. But I want to come back to the net play. So it's a variety of different ways, and one of the coolest ways, and this is really more of a tennis 301 kind of a thing, because you really have to have skills to pull this one off. But one of my players was playing a kid who was so good at the inside out forehand that if my kid even approached to the backhand, a lot of times he could get over there and hit a forehand passing shot. So to get around that, what he did is he hit chip returns, slice low, like at the service line or slightly in front of the service line. That pulled that kid forward, and now he's bringing the ball up, and now my guy can volley past him. So some, that little chip and charge, the low slice that pulls somebody forward and makes them pop the ball up to you, and then they're off balance forward, and then you can hit the ball behind them, and you're going to have a really high percentage. So that's definitely a tennis 301 tactic to come in on a chip like that. But to summarize, come in a variety of different ways. Try out some serve and volley in a practice set. What do you have to lose? Nothing, right? Go out and practice it a little bit, and use it sparingly. Like I said, if you serve and volley 5 times in a match, the other player is going to be thinking, "Oh, you're a serve and volleyer," and it's going to it will make them feel pressure. It's a really an amazing thing. And so a lot of times with my high school kids, I would say, all right, I want you to serve and volley the first point of the match. And if you happen to win the match, win the point, then do it again and just keep going until you don't. And then you can stop or you can keep going with it as long as it's going well. You know, but when you do that, the first point of the match, then the benefit that you get is the other player is going to have to shift. Instead of hitting the normal return that they normally are going to try to hit, they might try to hit deep at you in B, or they might try to hit to D, and deep to your backhand corner. But now they can't do that because you're a serve and volleyer. They have to get their returns low and closer to the line. So if you serve and then you like fake like you're coming in, you take like one little move like that, and then they hit you a short ball. Now you can approach on that, it really changes the complexion of a match when you come to the net because the other player is less prone to hit balls high up in the air and deep to you. You're going to get more short returns. So it's a real complexion changer of a match, and you can befuddle and confuse the power player and the so-called consistent player, the rally player. That can be a real benefit. So anyway, hey, Sterling, thank you for interacting. Do appreciate that. Maybe we can come on and we can have a little conversation one of these days on a broadcast. But let's go ahead and spend your social digital currency. It just takes a moment. Press like, subscribe, and later in the description, it's going to have a link to books and SwingVision and all sorts of different things. I have a lot of resources that are always in the description. And go out and make it a great day. Keep in mind, there are a lot of hurting people out there, so make sure you tip your barista and your waiter and waitress really well. Just be really generous out there because it's tough times for a lot of people. And I'll leave you with this. Every time you go to the store, buy another week or 2 weeks worth of canned goods. Remember I said that, right? This is, we're in April of 2022 and there's a food shortage coming. So go buy canned foods and stock up so that you have, eventually you're going to have like a 6 month supply. So please do that. You'll thank me later. And have a great day.